If you thought we would conclude our end-of-year nostalgia tour without covering Windows Phone, then boy, were you mistaken. A bunch of people commented on the previous video with the BlackBerry Passport about how it inspired them to pull out their BlackBerries once more and have just that little bit of fun with them. And I hope the same could be said about this Windows Phone video when we look at the Nokia Lumia 1020, my original 1020. I know some people in the United States are still lucky. I think some 950s are still supported on AT&T, perhaps 640s as well. So if you're one of those lucky few that are still using your Windows Phone here in the United States, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be dying to see what carriers are still allowing Windows Phones on their networks. I know it's getting tough. The 1020 is going to be really tough. Windows 8, maybe if you're overseas, you have half a shot, but even still, you can't log on to the Microsoft servers, Store, Xbox, all that stuff. None of it's going to work, so that's kind of a pain. One note as well, some of the Microsoft apps just aren't going to load up for you. You're not going to be able to contact the servers and log in. Internet Explorer is absolutely long in the tooth. I do believe you can upgrade some of these to 10. I left this stock on, well, not stock, but I left it on 8.1 because I still wanted that feel on this device when I did power it up. You can still do email, though, which was quite good. I went on. Outlook still had my email account. Went in there. Google wanted security verification because it said, hey, this is a secure device. So would you go ahead and verify that it is you? I did that. The funny thing was, on most things, when you go ahead and do the verification, so Internet Explorer was able to pull up my Google login, put in my stuff. It asked me to verify on another device, a second device. So sure enough, the login security check popped up on my Galaxy Fold 4. I said, yes, it is me. Usually when you do that, when you hit it, yes, it is me on another device, the original device, the first device, knows when that happens and go ahead and refreshes automatically. Well, Internet Explorer doesn't do that anymore. But what they did is they put a little button at the bottom that says, hey, I've hit the button on the other device. Go ahead and let me in. So I went ahead and did that and was able to get in and send emails just fine. So let's go ahead and pull one up here. This is my waiver wire for my fantasy football team, but I'll go ahead and respond so we can see the keyboard. So I was able to send emails here, that great keyboard, all the advancements that you have with Windows Phone. And it made me nostalgic for a few different things. There was a picture on Facebook. Facebook is usually pretty annoying, but my memory for today, December 23rd, 2013, was a picture of a keyboard, my first mechanical keyboard. I was building myself a gaming PC, and this guy was sitting there in the background. I'll go ahead and put up the picture. This guy was there staring back at me, still active, still in all its glory. So that's what motivated me to pull it out today and charge it back up and see how it was doing. I still remember going into the store. What a different time that was for cell phones. How much more exciting it was to walk into a carrier store because you had 4 different options there, and they were distinct options. They weren't just different manufacturers. They were different platforms. There were different visions for what cellular service should be. You had BlackBerry in one corner. You had Windows Phone in another corner. They had a little kiosk there. Then you had your Android devices. It was LG device, your Sony devices, Samsung devices. Then you had your iPhone stuff. And by the time I got this guy in 2013, I had been exclusively iPhone for a few years, since 2007, so almost 6 years. I was one of the first people in line, the first day for my iPhone, AT&T, $642 exactly in my pocket. And I remember that amount because I remember how shocking it was. The contrast between other devices that we used to have. You know, $100 with a 2-year contract is usually what you spend. If you got a high-end device, a high-end BlackBerry, $200 with a 2-year contract is what you spend. So $642 really stuck out in my head for that original iPhone. But I had missed different stuff. I was somebody that before that, I was switching my phone every other month. I was getting a Motorola Q. I was getting a Razr. I was getting a BlackBerry. I was switching back and forth nonstop until I went to iPhone, and the kind of iPhone data program or whatever on AT&T made that more difficult. So I stuck with iPhone. But I went to the AT&T store, and I was determined to get back in the game, different devices, and just start having fun with tech again. And I looked at, my friend was bugging me. He said, get a Galaxy S3. And it was just too laggy for me. Those Galaxies back in the day were a disaster as far as I'm concerned. Poor battery life, not great performance. Yeah, you had the flexibility. Yeah, you had the customization. That's great. But it just wasn't for me. So I looked at the Windows Phone, and I really loved it. We'll talk about what I loved about it. The other things, though, is that Android was different back then. Pre-Android Marshmallow, and this is a period that I've since become nostalgic for in terms of Android, because now when you go into a store and you look at Android devices, there might be different manufacturers. There might be a Sony device there if you're in Best Buy. There might be a Google device there, though certainly a Samsung device there. And even though they're different manufacturers, they're running basically the same distribution of Android. Sure, they do different things to separate themselves a little bit, but it looks all the same. Back then, 2012, 2010, even going back further than that, there were a lot of differences between the distributions and the experiences of Android that you got. Moto had their own little thing. HTC Sense, of course. And you had TouchWiz for the Samsung devices. So you got a little bit of different flavor there. You had that carousel thing going on with the Moto devices, the Motorola Photon and stuff like that. That was always cool. So I thought that was very different then. I don't like how it ran, but I'm nostalgic for the days when Android manufacturers differentiated themselves through their software, which is certainly not the case now. But this device really stuck out to me. And I didn't even know it at the time, but the amount of advancements in here that took people years to catch up with. OLED display, dark mode. You could get an always-on display here if you wanted it. The keyboard, live tiles. Live tiles is something that I absolutely wish had been drawn forward. And yeah, you could say widgets. Widgets don't even come close to this experience. And I can only express this if you had Windows Phone and you had used it. So if you are one of those people that had, leave a comment down below, because when you're trying to go back and explain it now, and it's disappointing because I know on Windows 10 there was some people commenting on the older videos saying that they've shut down the news live tile finally, and there's some other stuff that's gone offline. So live tiles are pretty much officially gone. But to have that where you would have your game tile and stuff would be flipping. You'd have your Xbox tile, so you'd see your Xbox avatar. You'd see when people on your friends list were getting achievements live. You'd have your Facebook integration with your entire friends list. It would just be flipping through there, and you'd see all your contacts and what they were doing, what they were up to live. I can't even imagine, with the amount of social interaction that we have today, if you had pulled forward Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, take whatever you want and put that into a modern day live tile where you could handle notifications that way and see what your friends were doing, keep connected with people. It would be really interesting to see what they would have been able to do if live tile, as advanced as it was a decade ago, had been pulled forward to 2022, 2023 with the additional social stuff that we have now with the apps that we have, and to see what could have been possible. That would have been really neat, because back then it was neat. And I used this even just up until a few years ago when it was still viable, and it was neat to see stuff then. It's just the amount of stuff that we had here, that the battery life, the efficiency, it didn't need a lot of stuff. It didn't need a lot of power. It didn't need a lot of RAM to run well. The beautiful display that was great for watching content. It was the best display. The saturation of color on an OLED panel compared to what we had at the time was night and day. So if you had one, the camera, of course, got a bunch of attention back then. 41 megapixels, great images, especially if you had good light, because the sensors were a little smaller back then. But if you had good light, you got a great image. Still holds up. You'll see camera comparisons today. There are still people on YouTube today that will compare phones to this guy. You can see the thumbnails. They're out there. It's pretty interesting to see what this could do in pretty decent lighting. Just great photos, great display, the lanyard strap, just a bunch of cool things here. And I love the design. I wish Nokia with their budget devices would give us something unique like this again. If you're going to be, don't give me something that looks like a reheated flagship design from a year or two ago. That's not going to do it. You got to separate yourself somehow. If you're going to charge $200, $300 for a device and you want it to be budget spec, at least give us a design like this that we could get excited about. We're going to talk one more time before Christmas to give our Christmas message out to everybody, but I hope you're having a happy and safe holiday. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.